Okay, here we go. Now I got it fixed. Yeah. All right, that should fix it. We are going to go ahead and get started again. Now I'm going to go ahead and just start a little bit. So the gist of it is that I've been now on what I consider maintenance to be 2 months. I started somewhere in mid-November going down in dose from 12.5 to 10.0. And so this has been me starting. My hope is to come off of the drug entirely. I don't know if that's going to happen. I hope it does happen, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I am just going to go ahead and try to do the best I can to decide as we go along. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and make any grand plans about it. Hopefully you hear audio right now, so give me a thumbs up out there in the audience if you do hear the audio, because I think I fixed it. All right. So that means that in October, I actually started this plateau, which got me stuck at this weight. And I wasn't losing weight. And I was doing the same things I had been doing, exercising. I had increased my exercising. And I just got stalled. And weight loss, that happens. You get stalled. But there's a common conversation out there in the YouTube world. And I kind of scoffed at it. And I'm sorry for the people I scoffed at that point. To say the situation that this drug kind of stops working at 70-ish weeks. Some people record 60 weeks. Some people say a little bit longer, like into 75 weeks. But it seems to, I don't want to say stops working because it's kind of a weird statement. But essentially, it's just not the speed that you get when you're early on in this particular drug. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate you giving me a thumbs up there. It just it loses its ability. That's why you'll see a ton of podcasters out there or YouTubers out there saying, I can't wait till the new drug comes out. It's supposedly more effective. It works better. And so maybe that one will work for me, because some of us have a ton of weight to lose. I mean, I still technically have 25 pounds more to lose. And I kind of stopped like right there at 75 and a half pounds, which is really frustrating because I want that I wanted to say 80. So essentially that's it. But what I decided in mid-November is I'm going to try to stabilize for a little bit. I was not feeling well on 12.5. And food had lost, before all the other doses I'd be able to eat. And, there were foods that I didn't used to like and that I couldn't even tolerate. Fish just made me nauseous. And there were other foods that as I was going up and up in dose, I just lost any urge to eat at all. And eggs was one of them, and I like eggs. So it was kind of weird, and it was kind of getting strange. And my food choices were getting very, very limited. So then I decided that I was going to start dropping my dose back to 10. And then hopefully somewhere in February go down to 7.5. Right now, my weight is holding, and it is stuck because I'm still stuck at that same place that I was having the plateau at. So plateaus, if my friend in research is correct, is that your body's doing math. It's trying to keep you alive. And at some point, you lose or gain so much weight that your body is like, whoa, 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 I got to do math. I got to figure out how to keep you at this temperature, this heartbeat. I got to do everything, do all the math all over again. And so it halts. It just pauses you. Like I said, there's no mechanism. There's no study that I've seen that talks about that active mechanism. But as someone who is an endocrinologist, he sort of suggested that that's what he thinks happens, is that you lose weight and your body wants to refigure its math again. That's why when I got to my lowest point, which is right here, I started getting cold in winter. I never got cold in winter. I started getting cold at night, which is kind of weird for me. Like my temperature was all over the place. I was feeling wiped out and exhausted. And I just could tell my body was going through something. And what I decided to do was to take a step back on the Mounjaro and see if I can't get myself feeling better again. And I do. I feel great now. The weird 2-hour naps has gone away entirely, which was good because that was a little scary. And if you didn't watch all the way along the time, I would go out for a hike. Let's say I'd go out for a 2-hour hike, and then I would come home and sleep for 2 hours. I mean, that is not me. I'm not a napper. In fact, I was an insomniac for most of my life. So I do feel better now, and I do And I'm starting to bring back foods again. And when I say that, I guess I realize when I'm looking back at some of the videos, I'm not bringing back cake or I'm not bringing back things. And in fact, I'm a little afraid when I go grocery shopping of changing too many things, because the most important thing is that I keep this weight off. And so I am bringing back eggs. I'm bringing back some things that got kind of, that I just wouldn't eat when I was on my full doses of Mounjaro, and eating them again. And they're all really good things. They tend to be protein items. They tend to be, well, I guess they're all really just protein items, because I am more afraid of carbs than anything. I'm not on a low carb diet, but I'm on what I always called a low-ish carb diet, which means I keep it under like 100, 125 grams of carbs a day, which is still pretty low. It's just not, keto or anything like that. And then going to the second phase is I started having pretty severe low blood sugar issues. I'd get back so I work out with a trainer on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And anytime I'd work out, either on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or the rest of the days, I would start feeling wobbly. And I would test my blood sugar, and it would be like I already had breakfast. And I went for, let's say, to the gym, and my blood sugar would be 53. 40 is considered to be like when I should really go talk to my doctor about low blood sugar problem. And I thought, Jill, you might not be diabetic anymore, and you're taking diabetic medicine. So I'm kind of curious from you all who maybe aren't diabetic. When you got on Mounjaro, did you have weird blood sugar problems? Because this is, in the end, a blood sugar problem drug. And so I wondered if maybe this is what happens when your blood sugar is normal and you take this kind of drug. So that's kind of a curious note to me. So now this last week, I started undoing what I was doing to drop my blood sugar, which meant it was all protein in the morning. And then, I don't eat after 6 p.m. So it's sort of, let's say, window fasting, that I don't eat for a period of time. And it turns out, and this is something for you, but I've been watching some Mel Robbins people with some, she had some dietitians and nutrition people on that fasting is really good for men. It is really not that great for women. Women's bodies and their metabolisms work entirely differently. And when you have fasting things, the body overreacts in women, because it is so worried about women having a famine that it drastically does things to protect body fat, even, because it wants to make sure you survive, and then if potentially you had a baby, the baby survived too. And so bodies are different. Men and women bodies are different, and that she felt that fasting was something that was really good for men and not very good for women. Anyway, this is getting back into the topic. So basically, I wanted to get into a more normal, my goal in all this was to get into a more normal platform when it came to eating. So then the question is, what exactly is normal? And that's what the topic of all of this today. So that's what is. I also had no Mounjaro dramas this week to talk about. So basically, we're still staying the same. But the question comes in, what is it that we're supposed to do? How are we supposed to live long term? Whether we're on this drug or we're not on this drug, what are we supposed to do? And how are we supposed to make this not another obsession? I was obsessed with losing weight. This is the very first year that I don't have losing weight on my goals for the year, which is the first time ever. I mean, like I said, ever since I knew what a goal was. And so I don't want to make this the next thing. And so that's important to me as well. It also comes into mind too, and I don't know about you, but every year I pick a year, a word of the year, and that's going to be like the goal or the main theme of the year. And this year I called it stabilize. Is that I started working towards reducing, not my podcast, because I have, if you say this is a separate podcast, I have 7 podcasts a week. Is that it? And I'm not trying to reduce my podcasts. I'm trying to reduce the complexity of them. And now I'm going to stabilize. Mounjaro, maybe coming down, stabilize. So the whole theme of this year for me is stabilization. That's what I'm going to work at. And so what is normal supposed to feel like? And the real part of it is that when most of us start in Mounjaro, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of change, the scale moves, and it's a novelty either not to be hungry, or for me, it was not to have impulse control with ADHD. And then for many people, it is not having that food hunger that they always had. And then, like I said, the later phases of it it's quietly just doing its job. You're still losing weight and things are still going, going well, but the scale does start slowing down, and food for me stopped being interesting at all. And my rules kept having to change as I've gone through these various phases with Monjero. And now, where I'm trying to no longer trying to control food the way I did with dieting, now I'm trying to cooperate, let me say, with my body. And that's kind of a different skill, I think. I'm trying to now say, hey, you body, let's you and me work together and try to figure out what living normally for Jill is. And I think that people get panicked. I see, like I said, I've been following some other YouTube people on there for a long time, and either they'll make blanket statements that, well, you don't have to exercise because you don't need muscle because you needed all that muscle because of your fat. I mean, you were carrying around a lot of fat. And saying you don't need muscle is a little bit like saying, well, I don't need to get paid as much because my grocery bills aren't as high as they used to be. The idea is that you trying to figure out this balance of what it is that you're going to do and how it works for you. And then when people, like I said, I've seen some of the people on maintenance, what they call it, panic a little bit when they start gaining weight and they start doing more things. And a lot of times it comes along with vacations and it comes along with trips and things like that. So, that's the question, is what can we do in order to live a more normal but not idealized a day? So let's just talk a little bit about normal, because I have some friends who have normal metabolisms, and I did some research about what they sort of think a normal metabolism looks like. And so it means that you're not eating perfectly. That is not part of normalness. Everyone eats maybe like they were talking about like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you're eating well and 20% of the time you have a snack or a treat or something above and beyond. That they too also have self-control problems. They're not always constantly self-control. They go up and down in weight, a few, and we've been there too. 5 pounds here, comes back down again, lose a little bit of weight, and it fluctuates around a range, and they still crave food. The difference is that the signals are there. You get hungry, you eat something, fullness signals come in. So hunger signals are coming through a hormone that is called ghrelin, and fullness signals are, did I get it wrong? Leptin, I think. And then fullness signals are leptin. And basically, we are back in touch with our signaling system again. Once we start ignoring the fullness signal, the body just starts ignoring it more and more. And as, and if you get diabetic, the hunger signals are all the time because your muscles are not getting fed with the proper things. And so it just is like, eat more, eat more, eat more. And so you never even get the fullness because it is hoping that eventually it gets what it needs, and it never does if you go into that diabetes stage of things, which is where it's at. So you want to get to this place where hunger is periodic and not constant. That's where I'm at right now. I actually do get hungry. And then I eat something, and then the hunger goes away. I just had lunch, and I did so because I was hungry. And that's something new for me, because I don't know about you, but most of the time when I was at my highest weight, I never felt hunger anymore. I just felt like eating. I ate because the clock told me. And I thought, how is it that my friend who's skinny, she gets hungry, and I am overweight, and I eat all this food, and I'm never hungry or satisfied. So that's the idea. But they will feel hunger, they will eat something, and then it goes away. When people lack this signaling, they no longer feel hunger. They maybe feel food noise, or for me, it was impulse control. Hey, wouldn't a steak be good? Oh, I should get a cookie. Maybe I need a cake, and it's more impulsive for me than it was. And then they panic hunger and they eat more than they probably should. And then they feel overly full and then not feel so great because now they're overly full. And they spend the day negotiating with themselves. I'll start my diet tomorrow. Or I'm just going to eat this cake. And that'll be good because then the cake will be gone from my house and I won't have cake anymore. And so it'll be fine, right? And you start in this negotiation back and forth. At least I did. And now what you do when you start thinking about that is that you start thinking about Oh, more normally, I guess. What do I need right now in order to feel healthy? In order to feel, instead of overly full, how can I satisfy this hunger, feed my body with what it needs, and then be done with it? And again, that's not going to be every meal, but I mean, for the most part, day in and day out, what can I do in order to feed my body and my lifestyle quite sufficiently? And so then people with fairly typical metabolisms, what they will do is they will eat, like I said, when they're hungry. They eat what's available to them instead of sometimes uh, going out and like ordering food or going out and getting food, because I don't want what's in my fridge. I want to eat something else. I got a craving for something else. And they may even plan what they're going to eat. Tomorrow, this is what I'm going to make for dinner for me or my family or anything else. And they adjust the portions to an appropriate level. So that's kind of what normal people do, is they put, I noticed like when I would go over to my friend's in-laws house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it was always me who would be like, man, I want that second scoop of, stuffing, boy. And no one else would take the second scoop, but I really wanted it. I really wanted that second scoop because, boy, she makes good stuffing. And instead, my friends were like, this is enough stuffing. I should be done with it for the day. And what they're not doing is they're not calculating calories like we have been doing on diets and compensating for meals or restarting. I'm going to start again on Monday. You know what? February 1st is coming up. Maybe I'll restart then. And that, I think, is the real big difference, is that they don't make rules and negotiations with themselves. And they'd also... I think eat more slowly so that the fullness kind of creeps back into them. And like I said, they don't debate. Should I stop now? Should I have another scoop? They just stop. They just stop because it's just normal, because they've reached what they've learned is a normal place to be. And when their weight fluctuates, they don't panic about it. Maybe they gain a few pounds and they lose a few pounds and they don't attach big meanings to it. But I know if you're anything like me, who's been on a diet my whole life, as soon as that scale goes up, I'm in full-blown panic mode. Oh no. And right now would be a perfect time. And like I said, since I've dropped in Monjero, with Monjero, my weight has come down, 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 down. It is a ski slope right there. It just goes right down. What has happened since I dropped down in dose is I'm back to where it sort of fluctuates. I get on the scale every day, and I'm doing it right now more for this channel to sort of see what happens. But essentially, it goes up and down, and it is every day. But I'm hovering around that same point every day. And so I guess, sorry, let me get a drink here. The difference is too, my friends don't spiral like I used to spiral when my weight would go up a couple pounds. And I'm trying not to do that. I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to keep doing what it is I know to do. And I'm going to keep eating in a healthy way. And that's kind of the goal. Now, for me, because my issue, I believe, was more impulse eating as compared to food noise. So I talked to my friend about the food noise, and whatever is happening with her and her food noise, it like calls to you at the refrigerator. And I never had that. I don't have my food call to me, or I don't think about food. My other friend, who's not overweight and never was, she just thinks about food all the time, and I just never did. To me, like I said, it was more like me grabbing a bag and then just snacking mindlessly until did I eat that whole bag? Is that bag gone? Or, maybe I just had a real crappy day and I just want a treat. I overdo it on the holidays because, hey, it's a fun time and there's a ton of cookies and good things out there. And then I would shame myself. Then I would I'm going to knuckle down, and I'm going to drastically restrict myself. And instead of that, life is kind of more of a fluent moment for me now. This is what I'm trying to do. Like I said, I'm trying to move myself into a more normal eating pattern, but also a more normal mental pattern. I'm trying to make this the year that I don't diet, that I don't think about dieting. Instead, I think about, like I said, fueling my body. I support the energy I need. I look for the things that, oh, I really didn't have a lot of vegetables to get. Let's just have a meal with a ton of vegetables because I just, or, maybe I went out with my friends and that was kind of a high fatty meal. Let's just do a little bit better for that. So essentially, I'm not going to punish myself. I'm not going to earn meals. I'm not going to exercise an hour on a treadmill so I can earn having a piece of cake. I'm not going to punish myself if I overdo it or I skip a workout. I am just going to try to be as normal as I possibly can. So a lot of this, if we think about like work and relationships and hobbies and plans, food is just one part of our lives. And then so I'm also trying to put food back into the right corner. It is just one part of the day. I have a lot of other things going on, and so I'm just trying to make it as, this is just another part of it. So part of it is that I'm trying to think about, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sort of just trying to reveal for me what normal feels like. Now, the one thing about normal is that you have to realize that we are not all different. So we're all the same, but we're all different. Let me put it in that way. So I see a number of YouTube people on there who will say things like, well, I don't really need, to eat a balanced diet. The GLP-1 just takes care of it for me. I don't have to worry about what I eat. And you're right, to an extent, you will lose weight regardless of that. But in reality, we're all different DNA-wise. We're all different emotionally. And so when it comes to normal, it's great to listen to advice of other people, but you got to figure out what is really normal for you. Because I'm not someone who had a food noise problem. That's not something I'm combating right now. Instead, I'm combating impulsive eating, which means that I make sure I don't have the things that I compulsively or impulsively eat in this house anymore. I would actually have to drive out in the snow and go find myself a snack if I needed to do it. So that's kind of how I'm sort of shifting this particular piece. The other part of, everyone being a little bit different is that, like I said, we have different DNA. I am going to do a thing about, proteins, fats, and carbs because I want to talk a little bit about it, but I decided I needed a little bit more research on it. But we are all built a little bit differently in DNA. So at one point, and I did this painstakingly, and I'm hoping in the future AI will be able to help it out. But I started when my blood sugar was out of control. I started tracking everything I ate and then my blood sugar at all these different points to try to figure out what was it that was kind of screwing me over when it comes to blood sugar. And I found two basic culprits with it. Is really red meats, saturated fats were spiking my blood sugar. If I ate some of it, my blood sugar would spike and then it wouldn't come down for a really long time. And then the second one was unexpected, was popcorn, which popcorn tends to be a really good treat for people who are diabetic because it's high in fiber. But I started, just Googling it and found out a lot of people had sugar problems with popcorn. And it turns out these are probably genetically controlled. The saturated fats is something that is part of a DNA makeup. They actually know what the gene is. I have my gene profile. And I ran it through, there's a woman named Rhonda Patrick, and she's a doctor, and she does a lot of this stuff with DNA, and she has this website, and I don't know if she still has it, I haven't checked in a while, where you can take your DNA profile, pay $25, and run it across the vast amounts of research that are out there. And I learned a lot of interesting things about myself. I learned that I don't make dopamine well, and I don't make serotonin very well. I also learned that I have the gene that saturated fats hurts my blood sugar more than it would a normal person. And so that's when I started backing off of it and my blood sugar started coming down a little bit. But that might not be you. And so you're, a little bit different. So there's some things we all share because we're human beings. That means we need to exercise. If someone tells you you don't need to exercise, the GLP-1 will take care of it. Your body needs to exercise. Your body needs to move. It functions more when it's moved. And I'll tell you that now that I've been strength training for quite a while, it is kind of cool to be able to pick up a 40-pound bag of like solar salt at the, hardware station and throw it in your trunk. And it wasn't heavy at all. It is actually feels good when you're able to do things that you couldn't do before. Go for a walk you couldn't do. Go for a hike you couldn't do before. Maybe pick up you always wanted to go skiing and you couldn't do it. That part feels good, but that is shared among all human beings. There is no human being out there where moving is not a part of it. Deliberate resistance training, because we need muscles. There's no too much muscles because you weigh less, you don't need as much muscles. There's no such thing as too much muscles. There is absolutely no. And as you get older, it gets harder and harder to put on muscle. And then, well, we're not going to talk about sarcopenia today, but there's a word you can look up. So everyone needs to exercise and move, resistance training and some cardio. Everybody needs a certain amount of nutrients. When it's either the major nutrients, when we're talking about proteins, some carbs and fats, we all need some of that. And then the micro ones, the vitamins and nutrients, the minerals, that kind of thing. You're not abnormal for that. And we just have a little bit different makeup, but we all treat food, similar in that way. We all have it. But where we're all different, like I said, some of us are different in how our DNA processes foods. For me, I can't eat saturated fats and I love steak. Steak is my favorite food. I always talk about the Last Supper meal. Mine would certainly be steak. But I know that it's not particularly good for my sugar. And right now I'm not having glucose problems. So I have indulged myself a little bit of red meat. And my blood sugar has stayed okay, primarily because I'm on a diabetes medicine. But you got to find out really what works for you. And that means that your new normal is going to have to be, what am I going to eat day in and day out? What am I going to do on holidays? When there's a party or a celebration or a birthday, have some cake, enjoy it. If you sit there and if you're anything like me, I would sit there and have like a cake or some dessert at a celebration, and I would feel horrible that I did it. You know what? If you're going to eat it and have a good time and enjoy it, just don't do it every day. And then the next day you resume to what is your normal eating for you. Stop when you're full, or, even make space for it, so that you have, I was going to eat some French fries, but I'd rather have a little piece of cake than the French fries. So you can start practicing this translation to you, is that you can let celebration meals and then take a notch out for the rest of the day. Eat a treat, but don't have treats, with every meal or every day. I remember that dessert was something that I used to have, back like families. We did not serve dessert every day in our families, but now I'm starting to see families that they have, maybe like some kind of treat during the meal and then a dessert after the meal. So now we're almost having dessert with every meal. We don't have to have dessert with every meal, but make it a treat again. Return treats back into the treat status. And eat when you start feeling full. They always talk about the Japanese people will eat when they feel like they're 80% full, because it takes a little time before the body catches up to registering what it is you just ate. And if you stop at 80%, then you will that's probably when you're actually full. It just hasn't caught up. But stop not when the plate is clean, but stop when you are, 80%-ish full, and give your body a little bit of time and see that you're full. That's the idea. And then we're not going to compensate. We're not going to sit there and try to, punish ourselves for having a piece of cake. We're not going to have stories about it. I was bad. Oh man, I was so bad this weekend. I ate so much stuff. Or I was so good. We're not going to put it in moral terms for ourselves anymore. We're not going to threaten ourselves, and we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is day in, day out, 80% of the time, we're going to eat more food. And, like I said, if you're brand new to Mounjaro, you probably are, now you feel you want less, you stop early, and you don't even really think about it. And that is a realignment towards what more normal people feel like. I think Mounjaro returns people to almost, as long as you're on a medium dose, it feels more like what normal people feel like. And I think that's why most of us really like it, is because we start feeling normal and we start learning what the new normal is. And I don't know about you, but now I started realizing that this much food is what a good lunch is. This much breakfast is what a good breakfast is. And it's taught me this invaluable lesson about where Jill thrives. I can actually have this much food for breakfast and I'm fine. I think, before you sort of thought, oh, I have to eat a better breakfast or I'm just going to tank in the middle of the day. I better eat this or I'm just going to start flailing in the middle of the afternoon and be tired. And so that's the idea. I mean, I think Monjero for me, and you can say down in the chat or you can say that makes you feel like a normal person again. And like I said, I think that's why we all like it so much. And I think that's why we're also so afraid of leaving it. But it is really enlightening to know that we can eat like a normal person and start doing that. And like I said, I am right now in that process of figuring out my new normal. I'm not increasing my carbs. That's the one rule I have right now. I always ate a little bit of carbs because I didn't feel well if I didn't eat carbs, but I'm not increasing that level. But I did increase my calories. So I did increase my calories up by about 400 calories now because I started out slowly each week, increasing up to 50 calories a week extra because, again, I wasn't feeling well. Now I'm up 400 calories a week and I'm not gaining weight and nothing bad is happening. And primarily, I'm also made those extra 400 calories protein. So that's kind of the plan I've been doing, and that's been working out really well for me. And I hope that's been working out for you. I had more contact. We'll talk about it some other time because we're getting long in the tooth. But I want to give the opportunity to whoever's in the audience here. If you had any questions or comments or how your journey is going, go ahead and drop it in and we'll talk about it here at the end. I am looking to make this channel about what you guys want to hear. I noticed for myself that a lot of times when people go on maintenance, the channel gets a little bit boring because you're kind of excited about that person. What are they eating? What are they doing? Now, did they lose 3 pounds this week? Did they lose 2 pounds this week? It's kind of exciting. And for me, the excitement was watching people change their lives and do other exciting things. But I'm kind of interested in what it is you're wanting to hear because now I've been on this, like I said, somewhere around 18-ish months. And, I've changed with each step of the way. And this is my last, hopefully, final change with this is that me going on maintenance and returning myself to a more normal level. That's the goal right now. I want to eat normally. I want to, if I, put on a few pounds and I, just sort of drop it, watch it for the next couple of weeks and drop a few pounds and I stay at this hover point. And just try to keep this here for a little bit. Right now, like I said, my stats are perfect when it comes to blood labs at the doctor. He was impressed. My size is fine-ish. I actually don't, even though I have 25 pounds to lose, if I do decide at some point to lose them, it's primarily going to be because I care about my knees and how much damage I did with all that other 80 pounds of weight to my knees and leg chain. And so if I do it, I'm going to do it not because I want to get sculpted, but I want to just take more pressure off of my knees. But essentially, I'm kind of, happy with where I'm at, even though it's not what anyone would consider skinny. I am in large size pants, medium shirts. That's okay for now for me. So I don't see any questions in the chat channel, but I'd love to hear from you. You're always welcome to put them in the chat channel when this video gets posted to the channel. But I'm interested in how your journey is going, how you are doing. If you have any questions or comments about maybe you're in the same boat as I am, or if there's a topic you want me to talk about. Like I said, I'm doing this for you guys. I don't get my Monjero paid for through this channel. I don't have any advertisers or anything like that, nor have I sought any. I don't even have the numbers to have it, but you don't understand what I'm meaning. I'm just doing this to help you guys out there because this has been the most monumental 2 years of my life, and I just hope that we can all get there, And I'm interested in see what the new drugs are going to do, what the new research is doing. We're starting to see more and more research out there about what it is happens when you stop taking it or when you get to your maintenance phase, and I think we're going to see a lot more research. I will tell you the truth. There was a big study in UK about people taking Monjero and one of these GLP-1s and what happens when they stop. And I will tell you the results are not good for us. That a lot of you, and I know you in the audience, I've talked to you before, we're all deciding maybe we stay on this forever because we just don't want to risk this because you know what? This is going to be the first spring where I'm down this amount of weight. And I'm going to go hiking like mid-March when it comes, when it gets nice outside. I'm going to feel great. I bought myself a bicycle, and I'll have to tell you, it's a really fantastic bike. But why did Jill stop biking? Because I didn't fit between the handlebar and the seat very easily. I'm going to fit this year. So I'm really looking forward to these new adventures. And I wish I remember this guy's name, but there was that one guy out there. He had a horror channel, like he reviewed horror movies with his wife, I believe, because I don't watch horror movies, so I didn't watch that channel. He went on Monjaro. He lost a ton of weight, and he was practically, I wept for him because he went to Disney World. Land. He went to Disneyland, I think, for the first time where he could actually get into the rides with his kid. He goes to parks with his kids, and he stopped his channel because he said, this is a new life for me because I want to be there with my kid. I don't want to be sitting here in this office. And I get that. So I think for me, I've been just more excited about seeing what exciting things people do with their lives once they start losing this weight. One last thought about this is I had someone say to me, well, why didn't you just, weight was coming off of you. And I said, yeah, 16 pounds came off of me in 3 years. If I was going to lose an additional 110 pounds, I would be, really past my hiking, season. It would be too late for me. And this gave me a jump start so I could just start living my life and doing the things that I wanted to do without waiting 20 years. So anyway, I wasn't going to tell you my real age, but it'd be old, right? I would be not in my age where I would be going and traveling across the country and doing adventures. So I appreciate you being out there. You can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. You can put comments here on the channel. Love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Have a great week.